Your snakes.
All right, Chairman, you can start whenever you're ready.
Great.
John Boy.
Yeah. Are we being recorded?
We are.
Okay, I called, the City County Industrial Development Agency meeting to order August 13th, 2023 at 12 o'clock. Their quorum and waive the reading of the minute of the notice of the meeting as well as the minutes and ask for the resolution to approve that.
So moved.
Second, Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mike, we'll make sure you get the
Thanks.
things in the.
I got one more meeting. Don't get me out.
Sure.
After this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a presentation today. As you're aware, we completed a housing feasibility study. And Camoin Associates has given me, I asked them here today to present some of the information that they gave to me. There's a number of different steps we could take to implement some of the things that were found in that study. I don't really want it, and I don't think you want it to be something that just sits on the shelf. We do know there's, millions of dollars in funding gaps that's going to be necessary to achieve those goals. So in order to try and chase down some of that public money that might be out there for housing, there's going to probably be some secondary steps that we have to take. So with that said, Alex, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Molly. And I've got my screen up here. You guys can see that. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So what we did is just put together 4 options here, and it really depends on how you want to operationalize the data and pieces from the housing assessment that John and I presented on a couple months ago now. So I'm just going to go through these at a high level and then happy to answer any questions and things around them. So option 1, I could see perhaps working through additional financial feasibility analysis. So if you'll remember, we did 3 properties, I believe. We did like a financial feasibility analysis for a potential build out concept for each of those sites. And so we had gone through this whole process of identifying certain criteria as to why we chose those specific locations. We had a longer list of areas that, could be well suited for various types of housing. So that would be a pretty easy process to quickly jump into and begin because we have the existing list of properties. So we could go ahead and do some of that. That is helpful in that depending on where the property owner is with their site, we've seen those types of analysis be used for funding applications, for financing with banking institutions. They have various applicability to be used to obtain funding. So that's option 1. Option 2 dives a little bit deeper into the land use side of things. So on being able to review zoning specifically within or land use regulations within communities. Obviously across the county, there's varying levels of formalized land use, whether it's at local or at the APA level. So again, we've done this in various communities where we're really trying to understand where and if there is a disconnect between land use regulations and the type of housing that is trying to be developed in that area. So we would probably engage with a planning partner on that. Again, we've got those partners throughout the region, but you could do that across the county. You could do this in specific communities that are more suited probably for housing development. So land use side of things and that analysis is option 2. Jumping to option 3, this is really turning the data that we've got into more of a strategy. So the regional housing study that was done by the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board about 3 or so years ago, that was developed into a strategy which Clinton County was a part of. This would be an opportunity to look specifically within Clinton County and determine, you know, prioritize a little bit how this group and how other entities involved in housing would like to move forward with specific strategies. So, you know, whether that is pursuing particular funding streams or developing certain incentives, or maybe zoning is incorporated in that too. There's a lot of different ways, but that one is really going to focus on building an action plan from the data that you've got. The report that you've got is very data focused, and we provided some initial thoughts on that, but this would be an opportunity to look specifically at recommendations for the county. I know this is quite small, but you can see this would be an example of what something might look like for an action plan associated with Clinton County. And then option 4, John, I might ask you to speak to this one specifically, the residential sensitivity analysis, some additional financial work that can help determine the feasibility of certain development types.
Yeah.
John, just, high level there would be great.
Yeah, sure. So what we did in the earlier study is we identified some specific locations and kind of dug into those particulars around that location. This is a little bit different, and it's something that we've done elsewhere, which is to postulate a typical development within the county and set up a very detailed financial pro forma and see, based on potential rental revenues and building costs, et cetera, property costs, how does it pencil out? And I think what we found in our earlier work for you all is that typically there's can be a shortfall. But once we have that basic outline, we can start working with some policy elements. In particular, what is the impact if there's a sales tax exemption or a other kind of financial exemptions? And how about if a pilot is implemented to reduce the especially near-term tax expenses to a developer owner over the next 10, 15, 20 years? And then some specifics around that pilot can be adjusted too. I beg your pardon? Was there a question?
It's us.
I don't think so.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So, for example, some elements around that pilot could be adjusted, such as there might be a 1-year period of zero tax in the pilot, or it could be 2 years. That can make a big difference. So there's kind of a number of levers that can be pulled, and what one ends up finding from an analysis like that is one, just how effective these can be, different policies of an IDA or other, organizations within the community, and how might those be optimized in combination with each other?
Thanks, John. So those are really the 4 options, until we get into some of the specifics around the scope and specific communities and things. We just have estimates or ranges for fees at this point for what each of those 4 options would cost. And we're happy to talk through what those options could be based on, the needs of the board and what you guys are looking to accomplish.
Alex, when you've done these studies in other areas, how did other communities take next steps?
I think most frequently is the strategy portion. That is just the sort of logical next step in terms of we've got all this data. We need to figure out exactly sort of what the data means to us, Clinton County, and how we can align that with, you know, tools and resources and things that we have along with other partners in the community. So I would say strategy, and then I'd also say the financial feasibility analysis, some variation of that. Because it often is, we do have, like, there's the 3 properties that we ended up doing, but there's 4 or 5 that, you know, there were others that were close on the list that could be helpful as well. So I'd say those are the 2 that have probably been the most frequent.
Chairman, I might recommend, like, if members want to ask questions, and then I will send you more deeper dive information for you to
Nope.
digest and make a decision.
Molly, we don't have this, correct?
No, you don't.
Okay, so, with all due respect to Alex and John.
Yeah.
I'd like to read what they
Yeah.
just presented on.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'll send you that information. So I didn't really want the board to make a decision today. I wanted this to be opportunity to let them speak, answer questions. You do a deeper dive over the next month and come back to the next meeting and say, okay, this is the route we want to go.
Okay.
Want to
So,
be sure you got the presentation so that you didn't go, I didn't read this because I had it before, so that you know.
Well, I was
I'll have it
looking-
next time.
I was looking for, so, oh yeah, I think I'd like to take a
Absolutely.
read of that.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you guys-
anything?
Do you guys have questions about what you think, like, you know,
I'd have to read it too.
okay,
I do have a question though.
Yep.
So in the initial, presentation that we were given, you know,
Yep.
the projects, only one worked, right?
I don't think any of them did they?
not really, to be honest.
Well, I mean, but,
Yeah.
okay, so the
Yeah.
point was that
Yeah.
they didn't work.
There was a financial shortfall, for sure.
Right, so in looking at, you know, Clinton County versus other areas that they've done these studies, are they able to identify what piece is causing it? I mean, other places grow, right?
Yep.
Or not?
Yep.
Housing wise, can we identify what it is that's causing those not to work? Period, so.
Yeah, so like
you know, is
essentially,
it taxes per, you know, per population? Is it infrastructure per population? Whatever it happens to be that's causing
question.
us not to be able to make one of these work versus elsewhere.
Do you guys have any insight on that currently?
I mean, we could, you know, we could certainly draw some inferences, I think, from our work in other communities. We'd have to do a deeper dive and, you know, we could do a deep dive into each of the 3 or whichever ones we looked at to look at the driving factors behind, you know, what the, where the shortfall is.
let me ask it a different way. In those other areas that you've done similar original studies,
Mhm.
did you also show a shortfall in the projects, or did they bank out?
I'd say more often than not, there's the funding gap.
Okay, so to John's point, if there's a funding gap, how were they solved in other areas?
Very creative financing packages with a lot of public-private partnership, working
Might
to make it happen.
Prime, they were going to get public financing to do that project. It's only gotten worse since then. For example, I've been talking with Empire State Development, and there's this program called Achieve New York, which is a $50 million award to one of the REDC regions. They want to use our housing study and look at Clinton County as a package, because what they're trying to do is not just create jobs, they're trying to do the whole, like, economic development as a whole. PDC is going to provide them with their childcare study. I'm going to provide them with our housing study. They have the CBIG property. They're going to look at the IAM strategic plan. So all those things of what is it going to take? It's going to take maybe $10 million in investment in housing to kind of accomplish getting those housing developments off the ground in conjunction with private dollars. So
break it down a little further. So
Yep.
you go to a place, you know, I'm just thinking of where I grew up. You know,
Yep.
Southern Albany County. You know, 200 house developments go up all the time. Now they have a population base. I get all that. Right?
yeah.
But if a developer can afford to make that work, where do we have to get in order to make those work, right? I mean, I know where I live, the lots are 1.25 acres. You go elsewhere, they're 1/4 acre, okay?
Yep.
can we help identify what it would take to make a development, if it's a housing development?
Mhm.
What it would take to make a housing development work? Does the municipality, in some of other places, the municipalities used to do infrastructure, right? That doesn't get
So I
done
think-
here. Is that what it takes to make some
Right.
of these work?
I'm feeling like that would be something that would be covered in the strategy piece. Is that, Alex, does that make sense? Like that,
Yeah.
that would be our strategy, is to
Well,
identify
I
that,
make
right?
sure that
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah, that's covered. I agree with you 100%. Because, and I'll tell you, and Keith and I spoke briefly earlier about housing, because he had a question on a particular development. I've spoken with at least 5 or 6 housing developers since we have announced our UTEP change. People who were not identified in the study for various reasons, like, you know, if it wasn't for sale, they didn't look at it. And so, but you know, I got contacted by Don Dooley, who said, I have this property in the city, I'd love to develop it. Why didn't you pick mine? I said, well, you don't have it on the market. So he said, well, let's talk, you know, so he goes, if those incentives are there, I might be inclined to develop it. I've spoken with the Taylors that have been doing properties up on the base, you know, people that are talking about this now because they're like, oh, I can shave that much off this project that I was gonna do anyway. Great. So that's one piece of it, but then we need to, you know, identify these locations that they said are good and how do we bridge the gap? Right? What are other communities doing that we can't? I think that's part of the strategy piece. But I'll get you all this information so you can digest it over the next month and then come back to the next meeting and be able to make an informed decision at that point. Does that make sense?
Do we have a lack of large developers? Is that part of the problem? Most of the people we have building are building a few new.
Well, it doesn't help that when a large
We need
development
something
comes
big.
up here, the community kicks them out.
Well, understand, yeah, that, you know,
I'm over it.
no, yeah, I can tell. But I just don't think we have a lot of large developers here. We got guys that build up a few places here and there.
No, we've got the normal people, but no, the ones who are gonna invest that kind of money are Albany and South.
Right.
Yes.
But, you know, if we develop a strategy to attract those kind of people here, right, that's what I think is important. I mean, they told us we need 1,100 units over the next 5 years to meet the demand. So,
Well, I think it's very important that you reach out to the local, developers. And that will, I think, set up the next move to go
Correct.
into Albany or,
Yeah.
you know.
What you don't wanna do is let those folks feel as they were bypassed.
which
Right.
is what you've done by changing your uniform tax exemption policy, right? We've said, hey, we heard you. You want to build housing. Here's how we can help you. So, you know, I already had one application for housing. So Shannon's gonna we got it 2 days ago, so that's why you guys aren't contemplating it. But so that's just one of, like I said, I've had 5 meetings at least and more talking about it. So we've heard the smaller developers around here. We're trying to work with them and help them. And we will work with them and help them if we can. And then, as you said, the next step would be to attract larger developers who can bridge the funding gaps on these bigger projects.
Did you guys do any, or are you doing any work in Onondaga?
So we're like housing specific. I'm currently working on the Central New York RADC project, which involves
Housing specific, cause I mean, they're gonna be with Micron, they're gonna be like woefully short of housing. So I'm wondering what they've done, or is Micron participating in that? How are they solving their problem?
That's a whole other, the county's got a strategy, the city of Syracuse has got a strategy, downtown Syracuse had the housing strategy. Micron's at the table, they have community engagement committees, they're working on it. But it's not a singular action, right? Like there's a sustained effort to work on all the pieces that are involved in housing, whether that's cultivating developers, whether that's cultivating land, whether it's attracting people to work and to, right? Like it's a whole, a big process underway that we could certainly, consider, understanding more about, if we move forward with this.
Ryan's got a whole team. Maybe you could talk to his people. Or Ryan McMahon.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So,
Yeah. To that point, I've had initial conversations with Sunny Epen from the University of Vermont Health Network. He's the president of the network. it's no secret that the Green Mountain Care Board decision was very detrimental to the Vermont side of the operations. I think in order for them to sustain their model, they're gonna likely shift services. There were some projections to shift services this way anyway, but there's going to be more services over here. And I've had initial conversations with Sunny about if we're going to see more employees, and I imagine the employees we currently have at CBPH still might have housing needs. How can we look at doing what they did in Burlington and have a public-private partnership with the hospital involved in creating workforce housing? Because I don't know if you've seen the development over there, but what they created is absolutely gorgeous, and there's hundreds of units.
Yeah.
So, and very preliminary initial conversations, but that's a reality of the healthcare network and how it's having to shift. So, those are just, we have to do some outside the box thinking, right? Because the traditional model isn't working and we need more inventory. All of it, we've had this conversation before, creating good senior housing, that I shouldn't say good, creating the type of senior housing that the current seniors are looking for does not currently exist for the most part. Would you agree?
Well,
The villages aren't here, Joey.
yes and no. Shazy's been trying for years to
Yeah.
get senior housing.
Yeah.
And they're told no, because there's enough senior housing now when you group all the towns together. So you have people, they're saying people in Shazy, you can go to Altona. Well, the seniors in Shazy don't want to go to Altona.
Right.
So you aren't getting the funding because they say there's not a demand for that.
Right.
That's just
Right.
one aspect
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And as far as developers, it's all about profitability.
Correct.
It's,
I mean, you're not gonna build it just for fun.
No.
You
So,
know,
but
you
I
need a
think-
return on
I think
investment.
from the study,
Yeah,
that shows that we're lacking this number of homes. That's something we need to do, the
Yeah.
strategic part.
Yeah.
To the investors, to say there is a demand so they feel comfortable.
Right.
Coming in.
Yeah.
If you look up in Champlain, we have a ton of Vermonters coming over either to Cumberland Head, Champlain, or Rouse's Point, because they can't afford Vermont.
correct.
And they're willing to make that travel.
Yep.
But how do you get that out there so that the developer feels comfortable doing that?
Yeah.
So we can come up with a strategy to
Yep.
create a demand for this,
Yep.
where a developer will say, that
Yep.
makes sense.
And it's good timing for us too, right? Because and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but we're doing our marketing strategy for the IDA. So those going hand in hand will be helpful because we're working to have a larger presence, both statewide and nationally, maybe internationally. So, that will be helpful, I think, in moving that forward.
But we do, at one point, Eastgate was built. At one point, Heritage Heights was built.
Right,
So developers we got a history, where once a year Champlain Park was developed.
Yep.
So we could use those developments
Yes.
around here. We just gotta make it profitable.
Yep.
For the developers to
Yep.
do it,
Well, why were they profitable then?
for the demand. There was a demand. When you look at.
and in lower
When-
costs.
When you look
right?
at the base, when, that company that came into that base housing and turned it into condos. There was a lot of concern within the real estate community because you're gonna have this influx of property. Well, they created this opportunity where people who had homes in the marketplace were now moving there, putting their homes on the market, and we absorbed it. So can it happen again? Yeah, it can. But this company came in, obviously they got the properties at the right price,
Mhm.
so they could redevelop it. But yeah, I think we could do it again. We just gotta find the developer who sees the opportunity there. And the affordability factor. Cause I think the average price was what, like $250 that we came up with? That's the average price. What do you get for $250 built brand new right now? 1,000 square feet? At best, at $250 a foot.
Put 20% down,
So
right to home.
not necessarily,
Yeah.
like alone you
All
go,
kinds of programs.
but
Today.
so.
And politics aside, I mean, the governor has said that housing, is a top priority for her, yet we're finding over and over again that there's not enough money to do these projects.
Maybe our,
There's gonna have to be some state investment in these projects to help these developers make it
but
profit.
maybe our market is the next step home from the first time buyer.
Right,
Maybe that's the market that we're thinking too much of the first time buyer. Maybe we shouldn't be thinking that way. What's the other option?
oh, I've been thinking the opposite, Joey, is more like, we need to create, I use my mom as an example, like, she's got this big house. but she doesn't want to move because the senior options that she has are like, you know, Champlain Northern Tier Housing. She doesn't want a 1-bedroom apartment. She'll kill my father, you know, like. She wants like a 3-bedroom condo that's that's senior designated, you know, which we don't
And
really
you
have.
know, with the baby boomers, we're maxing out right now.
Right,
Want to downsize.
Yep.
So does somebody develop a kind of, it's
Yeah.
not senior housing per se, but it's built for the person downsizing? And do you have a development for the person that's thinking of upsizing?
right. But like the villages in Florida, right? It's a nice community that people enjoy, you know, I mean, we don't have the climate obviously, but
No.
you know, more and more people are wanting to stay closer to home because of grandkids and things like that. And I mean, grandparents are significantly more involved in their grandkids' lives than have traditionally been in the past. So it's freeing up that inventory for the upgrades, right? For those you have the first time home buyers that want to move into, say, like my mom's house, which is
Right.
a 5-bedroom, 2-bath house where they're in a 3-bedroom one.
Plan, and we have to put a package together to get out to the
Right,
the developers with financial incentives.
Right.
To make it work.
exactly.
But we have to say, have you thought about, we create the demand.
Yeah.
We talk about the
Yeah.
boomers.
Yeah.
Downsizing.
Yeah.
We talk about the first time buyers that want to upsize and the homes aren't there. So we can come up with something.
So, I mean, all that being said, it sounds like, you know, the strategic piece of this, being the most popular, it sounds like is something we probably want to move forward with. But again, Alex and John, I'll send them all the deep dive information so that they can review it over the next month. Decision which plan of action we're going to move forward with, or plans potentially plural, in the next meeting.
Sounds great.
Right. Thanks so much, guys. Any other questions? Right. Thanks, guys.
Right. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Moving on.
Moving on, doesn't appear as though we have any public comment. Keith, do you want to do the treasurer's report, please?
Sure. The treasurer's report for the Cook County IGA, the account balance of July 31st, 2025, $99,880.51 in checking, $1,813,016.45 in sweep account. We did not receive any income in the month of July. The invoice was paid in June. Cook County Treasurer admin fee $13,000. Reimbursement to Molly Ryan $51.24. CPL Architect billing $7,168. Another CPL partial billing $6,950. Golden Shovel, the marketing blueprint, $39,950. Golden Shovel for gatekeeper service $12,000. And MRB groups see $1,119. The credit card payment for meeting expenses is $69.65. And the bank sweep fee is $10 for total expenses of $80,331.64. That's my report.
Any questions for Keith? If not, may I get a motion to approve the treasury report? Second part. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business.
Okay, so I wanted to, I don't know why it's not doing what I have here, but that's all right. Wanted to give you guys the slideshow that I gave, there we go, to Clinton County Legislature this past week. As we know, we conducted the feasibility study. Now it's up to the county to kind of figure out the direction of what they want to do with their property. So what we did was at our last meeting, you heard me say we were going to take public comment for 3 weeks. We did that. We received about 60 or so comments. About 40 of them came from Cliff Haven, Woodcliff Drive. So we took all that feedback, presented it. I gave it to the legislators ahead of time. And asked them to tell me, considering the feedback that they received from their constituents, out of the 3 concepts that they saw, what were components that they loved and what were components that they hated. And that's going to give me 5 of each. From there, I took the elements of what was the resounding themes from my legislators, and compiled it for them to decide to give CPL the next direction of what do they design out of that feedback, bring us another design. You know, these three were just, here's what we think could work there. But, you know, so for example, I'll skip that. I just explained why we did this. And I want to, and reminding everybody that whatever CPL comes back with is still a flexible working document.
Right.
You know, if Schluter came to them in, 2 years and said, we want to buy the whole property, and the county says that's what we want to do, that's their choice to do with what they want to do with the property. I don't really love that idea, but it's their property. So what we're trying to do, and one of the resounding things that we heard from my legislators is that they want to have an anchor development. They really like that concept of the Great Wolf Lodge type of thing and having things build up around it, rather than as it was presented, starting with this building, and then you can get your Great Wolf Lodge. So that's what they want to see first. They all want to keep some sort of trails that are out there already maintained, maybe enhance access to the golf course. So there is some sort of public access up there, because a resounding comment that we heard was people still want to be able to access that property. It is the most beautiful property in Clinton County, and people still want to be able to get up there and access it in some sort of public way. Whether the county decides to be the one in charge of that remains to be seen. But I told them, don't get caught up in the details of leases, or say, are we leasing, are we selling? Let's just hold, let's figure out what we want there, what can work, and then we can move forward with those concepts. They want some sort of, adventure features, zip lining, climbing, probably in the gym, turning that into some sort of recreation center that, something like, when you go to Albany, they have like those trampoline parks with zip lining and climbing and all these different things for kids to do, because another thing people said is we want something for kids to do around here. And housing to support workforce and senior needs, that property, particularly across the street, certainly lends itself to housing. So they were very, happy with moving that forward. And they want to make sure that the activity is there that is year-round mixed use. They're very hesitant on anything seasonal, because they want to make sure that it's constantly creating revenue in some way. Well, we definitely heard them not say that they do not want any manufacturing contemplated as part of this property. They have a 450-acre parcel, the Clinton County Business Innovation Gateway up off of Douglas Boulevard, and they really want that developed first, as if for manufacturing. They wanted to, as I said, avoid seasonal programming as a core strategy. No theme parks, or they don't want a seasonal Great Escape town center style art hubs. They want to see. That's not to say the Great Wolf Lodge couldn't have their thing. They just don't want to turn the outdoor stuff into something ginormous and disruptive. Limit disruptive uses like festivals, glamping, and delay any permanent land commitments for now. We don't want to tie ourselves into things. It's basically the top 5 do's and don'ts. So from there, they're going to take this now back. And I did mention to them, as I think I've mentioned to this board before, some things were ruled out in this feasibility study. So if the reason the Moore building wasn't presented as a hotel is because it simply isn't feasible to turn into a hotel. The return on investment would never be realized, no matter how many public dollars you got there. So there were ideas that were ruled out. This is just their first step. This is a bit, as I communicated at the meeting where we did have some Cliff Haven and Woodcliff residents present. This is a long process that we're going to be going through, and making sure that what gets developed there and generates significant revenue for the whole county. We will be sensitive to residents in the area and their needs and what they're asking for. And I assured them that that piece of land that they're very concerned about, which is the land that has some lake frontage that abuts the Cliff Haven Beach, is probably the last priority for the county, because they have these buildings up on the hill that have to be maintained and are going to be very costly to do so over the next couple of years. So that's their first priority, is to offload that property. So that was kind of the gist. Questions, comments?
I think it's very good, actually.
Thank you. We will be sending out communication to every Woodcliff and Cliff Haven resident saying exactly what I just said. So that they understand that, nothing is set in stone, and this is, they will have ample opportunity to have their voice heard and considered. And just for the record, there's about 280 homes in Cliff Haven, 40 in Woodcliff.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so no question, then we will move on, Chairman.
Okay, great. Marketing program, okay.
Yeah, so that is moving forward very nicely. Some of you, or maybe all of you did, were either interviewed or received a survey from, Golden Shovel Agency. They spoke with stakeholders across the community. They compiled those results for me and have presented them to me. I have to go through and clarify some things for them. Like, for example, our study said 1,100 homes, town of Plattsburgh says 2,600. What's the difference? Before they present it to you, they want to get clarification. For the record, the clarification is the town of Plattsburgh said they could build 2,600 homes. It's not necessarily what the need is.
Right.
So, that's, just clarifying different things like that for them. And then they will come back and present to us what they found and what they think we can do from here. They've also been working closely with Boyer Benner to develop a marketing strategy that they will follow and then I shouldn't say take over. They will, use our social media platforms to help us build our social media presence. And I guess that's kind of the summation of where we're at with them. Questions, comments?
On to point.
So I got a draft of the video, which I'm not showing you today because there were a lot of feedback comments I gave them. It was the artistic style that they used was a little
Wonky.
yeah. It was, the footage is great. And I do think Mike and I sounded very wonderful in our interviews. Mike certainly sounded better than I did.
I don't know about that. Truth be told, it was a process that you can stop and start, so there was a lot of stopping and starting.
They got some great footage, and I think once we have the final product, it will be very useful for our use. And Golden Shovel is very excited to be able to utilize that video. We did ask if we could have the raw footage of that too, because Boyer Benner could kind of take some things from it and use it in other places.
So we don't think that that's gonna be used locally though, even when it's completed in its final form. We don't think it's gonna be
Define
our PBS.
No, so the way this works is, here's the thing, like they market this as like, oh, it's gonna be all over the internet, they sell a good story. Basically, you have to pay, a lot of, like, our local PBS would have to pay to get that video. So it goes into like bigger markets usually if they opt to want to feature something like that. It will be on their website, so it will be accessible there. And then we're going to use it for we got a very high quality. Even Boyer Benner was like, holy cow, what kind of lens did they use? Because that is amazing. So in fact, I think Aaron said he was going to go invest and get the better camera that they had.
But it would be not, it would be nice, our PBS gets the Montreal market. It would be nice if it got there, but I'm guessing, public television stations are just got some bad news from the federal government.
Well, I don't think they're gonna be buying much right
I
now.
don't think anybody's gonna be buying.
But here's the thing, right? We're using a marketing strategy to get us into Montreal, and the company that we've hired, Golden Shovel, will be utilizing that to get into other markets. So at the end of the day, even if the Viewpoint story doesn't run all over the nation, we're gonna be putting it out there all over the place. So it's a really high quality produce. You think about what we paid Boyer Benner to do that first round of videos, it wasn't that much further off than what we paid for this one. So I think no matter what, I think it was a good investment.
I don't know if Kavanaugh's getting their money's worth with that firm.
5 years.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see the final product, to be honest with you.
Likewise. And by the way, Boyer Benner has been just to backtrack just a little, very excited to work with Golden Shovel.
Just gonna ask that.
Vice
versa, they're communicating well.
Vice versa. They
Maybe
both
try to
have,
meld those two.
they both have been, well,
proposals.
so Golden Shovel does this all the time, right? They work with local firms. They understand the need to use local people. And Aaron has expressed to me that he feels like this is such an opportunity to learn from such a larger marketing firm and get into a bigger economic development world that he has not been able to really get into yet. So for them, they're seeing it as an opportunity. They didn't think they were going to get the bid. So
Yeah, Boyer Benner did?
no,
Oh.
they knew that their presentation was not going to be nearly as good as theirs was. So they're both working together happily. Yes.
Okay, any other old business?
I should have, I'm sorry, just mentioned this with the treasurer's report. We have finalized everything and Dee Dee can firmly access all of the different sweep accounts for CRC, IDA, and the new high yielder savings accounts have been established, and we get to move money as we see fit between the savings and the sweep account to bear more interest. So probably a discussion we need to have at some point about what the board want, like the numbers you want to see in those accounts. Maybe I can put that on next agenda, but we just got that all finalized.
Could we add that to the treasury report?
Sure. Yes,
So we can keep track of it.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other old business?
None, Chairman.
New business, microbird modifications.
Yeah, so Shannon, can you explain what they need here?
Absolutely.
That's a mortgage thing, I think, or something.
Yeah,
A
so,
mortgage thing or something?
Hi, this is what I depend on the attorneys for.
as we,
John, are you hiring?
Yeah.
John, are you hiring?
Not me.
No opening.
as a refresher, when the board approved this in January, the project that was contemplated was to acquire 3 parcels. There's the parcel that the main, former Nova Bus facility was on, and then there's 2 adjacent parcels. When we were closing the straight lease, we had to close before March 1 in order for the company to take advantage of the pilot on time. And they were not ready to purchase those other 2 parcels yet. Now they are ready to purchase those 2 parcels. They're pursuing a subdivision of the parcels, so it'll all be one large parcel now. And secondly, they're closing on their financing, so they're ready for the IDA to enter into a mortgage. So this resolution would authorize you to complete those 2 actions. So we'll review the mortgage, make sure that all the language that we need in there is available. We will put together the modification documents, which would just agree to change the legal description in the straight lease documents. We would have, Trent, Dave, or Molly execute those, and then we'll be all set.
Straightforward.
So. May I get a motion to approve resolution number 08-25-01. Resolution consenting to authorizing the execution and delivery of certain documents with respect to known as defined herein. And the acquisition of certain parcels of land in connection with Microbird Incorporated project. Keith, Dave second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Trent Traham, yes. Dave Hooper?
Yes.
Mike Zerl?
Yes.
Yes. Keith Defiant,
Yes.
John Van Atten,
Yes.
Joey Trump.
Yes.
Motion carried. We go on to accounting firm.
So we have noticed, Dee particularly has had to struggle to work with, Jake Carell in getting reports that we need. We're finding a lot of slip and errors and things that have been reported. We thought it might behoove us to transfer forms to, David Bushy, given that he already does our audit. I checked with our council, there's no problems with doing that. They felt it would be best to get a voice vote from the board in order to make that transfer.
So does our procurement prohibit that, or do we need to seek quotes or anything?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna bring up. So, we discussed this with Molly, accounting and, that type of services are professional services. So under your procurement policy, you do not have to put this out for a bid. You can if you want to, but you can bypass that in this instance.
Are we anticipating? I'm not opposed to this at all, but are we anticipating a large delta in price between the 2 firms?
That I don't know.
So I think before we bless going something, I'd like to at least know what the cost is gonna
Okay.
be.
You can do that.
That's my opinion. And I think it may be a prudent action. I
I think we
need,
may have actually mentioned that to Dee at some point.
I think we need to know what the hell we're saying yes to. So,
Yeah, I'm sure it's bigger. But we might be getting better service too.
I'm sure you will, but at
Mhm.
least, normally when we vote on stuff, we at least know
Sure.
what it is.
Well, so I'll get a quote. Can I just email that out to the board and you get, I can do a,
We should approve that at the next meeting.
you want to approve it next meeting? Okay.
Is there any deliverable change if we change agencies, to do this? Is there something that has to be communicated between the two, cooperation, for the average?
I would imagine so. I mean, he's gonna have to give over all of our stuff, right?
Dee Dee, you have any answer to that?
It's just, it's response time.
Dee Dee has been struggling.
Really have to.
So it's your fault? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, again, I'm not, please don't take my question as, I think, we should know what new, if it's not a full-blown seeking, look to the market, I mean, it would be nice for Dave to write us one sort of memo and say, I can do A, B, C, and D, and I'll provide, a quality service, and I look forward to working with you, and the
Yeah.
cost of this service is X. So
Yeah.
we have something to make a decision on.
Yeah, and quite frankly, Dave struggles when we do the audit every year to get the stuff that we need from Jake Pro. It is like a constant battle, so. That we're paying for that service, and in my opinion, we shouldn't have to struggle to get our services.
Well, just, I don't want to rehash any nightmares, especially what we have gone through, but has it been elevated, no response, in their organization, they're brought up in a different manner so that they were given an opportunity and.
I haven't had a conversation. There's been a lot of email correspondence about, I'm certainly happy to have that conversation with him if you'd like me to do that
No,
for.
I was just trying to understand because, back and forth, and any,
Yep.
claiming they didn't get beat, weren't given a fair chance to know what was going on.
Yeah.
Not being involved with them, just assuming we did that.
No, I, like I said, there's email correspondence. I haven't had an actual conversation. Like I said, if you guys would feel better giving him another chance. I feel like we've given him a couple of chances.
Yeah, the history shows that we've been.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say.
Guys, we've had this conversation 5 times.
Is it 5?
Well, it's at least 5,
Time to move on. I agree with Mike.
maybe 4.
At least on the.
And that's
What you're
fine.
gonna get,
Yep.
what you're gonna pay.
Yep.
But exactly,
Yeah.
okay. You've hit oil, stop drilling, Molly.
It's not something we should be having to talk about on a regular basis.
Correct.
We should be talking about the numbers and what they mean for us. Yeah. So.
Okay, I'll get the numbers and, we'll vote on that in the next meeting.
Okay, Connecticut Avenue Holdings.
So this is something we've been talking about for a while. We can see they have been giving their quarterly reports. I think the last one actually came on time, relatively on time. Relatively.
That was it.
The numbers keep being reported the same, which I don't know where they're getting 9 construction numbers from, and we've asked them for clarification.
Construction, they're not building anything.
And they say, we get these numbers from our tenant. So,
What
The-
tenant?
The guy paying the rent.
So here-
I thought they were the tenant.
No. So the financial incentive went to Connecticut Holdings
for the project of
for the
Sterex.
project. Sterex lease, Sterex has shut down operation. And our incentive was based on the value of the Sterex operation.
And when you compare it to their application and the jobs that were supposed to be created, they're nowhere near close to that at this
So
point.
my point is, even if Connecticut Avenue Holdings says that these came from the tenant, I know for a fact that that's not happening. Not that they're not
Right.
giving them numbers, that the numbers are inaccurate.
Yes, and we also know for a fact that the property is not actively being marketed.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And the rent's being paid, so Connecticut Avenue Holdings is making revenue. And their liability remains untouched because of the incentives afforded by this board. And we're not gaining the benefit of why we gave that incentive. And this whole this whole, and I'm not, and by the way, Connecticut Holdings didn't create this. I'm not, but the fact is, they got a benefit based on a, you know, a tenant's obligation. They're still getting paid, and the incentive, and the benefit that they garnered, or the community garnered, or were supposed to garner, are no longer there. So we've talked about it about 4 times as to how we're gonna potentially claw back or have a discussion about no longer affording them the benefits, and I don't know where we are with that. Please.
So at this point, we have sent them, I think, 2 letters. We call one a demand letter, where that's when we ask them to come in and report to you, and they did come into one of your meetings and gave an explanation, and that's why we've been pursuing these quarterly reports. The next step that we discussed with Molly would be sending one of these default letters, you know, indicating that under the documents, they're not doing what they are supposed to do. This type of action is obviously a last resort. We don't see IDAs calling a default on their documents often, because obviously you want the project applicants to succeed, and you want this community to have the benefits that were being promised. But when we discussed with Molly, we thought it would be best to have this on the agenda today, so that the board could decide, you know, take a motion in a second and say, yes, send a default letter, or proceed as is.
Is there something before the default letter that says, we believe the information that's being provided, whether it's directly from you or from your tenant, is not accurate?
We can send another demand letter.
That's a demand letter? Okay.
And when you send a default letter, there is a cure period. So, you know, when they get the default letter, that starts the notice clock. And if they can cure, or if they can come in again and give you information that's more satisfactory, then you don't.
You know, they've not even provided proof that they're seeking a new tenant. And you know why they're not? It's because they're getting paid by the old tenant.
How long is that for? You know?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's.
But whether or not they can or not, John? I mean, no, I'm
All
saying,
is, you're right. No, listen, I'm not arguing with that with you, Mike. Point is, if I've got a tenant, and you maybe can't get in, you know, if I've got a tenant who's paying me and they've got a lease, you know, other than whether there's a use clause in there that they've got to be there, can I really go out and find a new tenant?
yeah, I don't know. We didn't incentivize Connecticut Holdings for Sterex to have, you know, 2 part-timers in that building.
That's my concern as the executive director and filing, you know, ABO reports that we will
Mm-hmm.
have to do in 6 months, is that the job projections are not nearly what they had promised you. Now, I guess you can make the case for a couple of other your projects, but this one is a little different because we know that the company is not there, right? They have officially pulled out their operations. So you get provided a benefit based on this project, which is not creating jobs. And so I just want to be sure that we've taken all the necessary steps. So if I go to, you know, file this in March and they say, listen, this one doesn't, you're not creating jobs on this.
If this, I'm not saying if, I'm not trying to hide anything, but should this come up in a review from the ABO or whomever, we're gonna look foolish that we didn't move forward.
Well, what's the downside if we do move forward of doing the,
Well, it's a downside. I mean, the only downside is hurting the financials of Connecticut Avenue Holdings, because we're costing them more money. But they promised us that they'd help the community with this incentive.
right, so then why do we care if they're hurt financially, if they aren't?
We all work together.
What's that?
We all work
We care. I
together.
mean,
No, you're right, Joey. I'm not.
you play by the rules, if you don't play by the rules, then here comes a letter.
I mean, I think you said that whether Connecticut Holdings didn't intentionally create this. I mean, I'm not mad at them. The fact is, it's no longer there. So we either reduce benefits or claw back benefits or do something that tells the world that we're not just giving away freebies.
That's it.
I agree.
And I
We're
think,
at the stage to recommunicate that to them, back to the other issues, what we expect out of them since they aren't performing to the number of employees.
And you send a letter and these are your 3 options,
I would think there have to be some options, whether
Right.
they are, need to be determined.
so we're giving them a way out, And if they,
Well, I think that's something you would discuss in the cure period, right? Like they would have to come to us and say, well, listen, we're willing to do this then.
We don't have any provisions for this exact situation. So it seems that we need to come up with a plan that gets escalated with Connecticut Holdings that says, okay, we understand your tenant isn't there, not creating jobs. So this is what you need to accomplish in a certain period of time to retain these benefits.
Can we say, I know I'm splitting hairs here, Chairman, but can we say, while no fault of your own, or while we understand this was not of your own making, the fact is, the Industrial Development Agency provided a benefit based on A, B, and C. A, B, and C are no longer there. As such,
You got that, Shannon?
Yeah, so I think what I would suggest is the default letter reads in a pretty specific way. That way, you know, it's a clear default under the documents, but when we send that letter, it might be helpful for either Chris and I or Molly to send an email to Connecticut Avenue Holdings Council, letting them know that this is coming and saying, in the meantime, set up a call and, you know, say this to them, that we understand that you didn't intentionally lose this tenant and we're not trying to be too aggressive or punitive, but
We have a
the idea,
responsibility, yeah.
exactly.
can we demand they come to the next meeting?
Yeah, you can demand anything.
I would get them here.
well,
You have a heart to heart.
why do, I think the letter is the heart to heart. I don't necessarily need to see him again.
I don't think you need to call them on the carpet. I mean, they're caught in between the things. You know, we just have to lay out what our policy is in order to retain those benefits.
We've had similar things where people weren't performing. You just basically have to have a corrective action plan if that's what we agreed to do.
Okay.
And I don't think I would be hesitant to put something so specific because we might not know all the facts. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. State that you're not performing based on the scope that we originally had signed on, as like said.
But let's
And
just
then
say
let them,
they have a very legit excuse.
they could,
Right,
they could.
but does that still change?
No, it doesn't, Joe.
No, we have a responsibility.
Right, that's-
They didn't get their-
So I mean, I can. I feel sorry
Well,
for
they can go to that
him,
meeting.
except, here's where we're at.
You know, it's a, I don't know if it's weird, but it's a tad bit crazy that, you know, the benefit is going to a landlord based on a tenant.
Right.
You know, it's not like we incentivize a company that's, you know, doing everything themselves. I mean, but at the end of the day, folks, it doesn't matter. It's gonna look awful, or it does look awful, regardless of why it happened, that a benefit is being provided when why we provided it does no longer exist.
And in an era where people are
Chairman, I
scrutinizing.
recommend we send that default letter.
Do we need a motion for that?
You can do a motion in a second.
Do a motion.
Okay, so, Mike, second, Joey, any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Quite simple.
Poor Christine, you guys are mean.
I don't know, you're the cheerleader.
Well, we've been talking about it, and again, that's why, Shannon, I do think it's important to communicate that we understand you didn't bamboozle us. It just, here's the facts. And the facts dictate we can't continue to do what we've offered to do.
Yeah, we'll get in touch with them. That way this doesn't come as a shock.
Thanks, Shannon.
Amen.
All right, we can move on, Chairman.
Okay, any other new business?
I have no other new business.
Mike, could you,
Yes, Chairman.
update us on the county?
Well, yeah, obviously I got a couple things to talk to you about. First and foremost, Ms. Peters is here with us. She is an acting county administrator at this point. to take over upon my departure, which is gonna be in early October. So she has been sitting with me, listening to me, you know.
We're sharing the office. It was painted purple.
Yes, but I'm now the stepchild in the corner over here. But that's all right. I'm trying to impart what,
Closer to the door?
we got 3 doors. Closer, I mean, trying to impart what little wisdom I have. But I have full faith and confidence in Christine. We're so excited to have her running the county. But that being said, my position on this board was here for a particular reason, and that was as liaison per se to the county legislature. So Christine should come on board in my position or on the board representing the county's interests. And you know, that would leave me out in the cold, which is perfectly fine. I spent almost over, I think, 25 years as an IDA board member. That being said, that being said, my schedule would allow for me to continue on the board should an opportunity in the future exist. And the county legislature feels that appropriate to play a different role on the board. So that possibly could happen in the future, but suffice to say, Christine will be taking my role on, or the role of county liaison board member, probably in your October meeting. So if the legislature is gonna need to make that appointment, right? So you're gonna have to talk,
Resolution, yeah.
need a resolution to do so next month.
Yep.
Okay. Nursing home, I know I've been talking about the sale of a nursing home for 3 years. But not only did we receive approval with contingencies from the Public Health and Health Planning Council, finally, in New York City, that they blessed the buyer's application with contingencies. So that was a great day. Subsequent to that, they have satisfied the contingency set forth by the PIPIC. So now essentially the transaction is blessed, and according to our contract with the buyer, there's 90 days for the closing to happen. So essentially, you know, it's pretty much a real estate transaction at this point, and the 2 parties' attorneys are working together to facilitate that closing. So we should, the county should no longer be an owner operator of a nursing home facility, which is good, because my next topic is the Clinton County budget for 2026, and fortunately, I'm not doing it. So, but that is a budget that we probably will not have to prepare. That is one of the 20-something budgets that Christine will not have to review and recommend changes to the legislature, so that's good. But being said, you know, for many years, I've said to the department heads that it's gonna be a difficult year, and I don't know how we're gonna get through it, and we find a way. And sometimes that's accurate, and sometimes that's my way of, you know, trying to get good submissions back to me. But this year, I think Christine, at her budget meeting, laid out some challenges, most of which are in and around federal policy that gets pushed down to the state, which gets pushed down to counties. So there is some downward pressure from federal policy that will, you know, in the SNAP program and the Medicaid program and other things. The state's out year financial deficit, I believe, is $34 billion with a B. So we'll see how that plays out. But suffice to say, her first budget is not an easy one. Sales tax to this point continues to not only exceed projections, but at this point exceeding 2024's receipts. But we've not had a full reconciliation to deal with geopolitical fallout. You know, we rely heavily on our neighbors to the north. And they're not happy with us right now in many respects. So, but so far we're good. But we're expecting, you know, those numbers to tilt. You know, in 3 months when we get our next reconciliation, which will pretty much be, which would cover the start of the angst to present. So keeping our fingers crossed, cautiously optimistic, but it would be nice to have another year of solid sales tax such that she is able to enhance that revenue in her 2026 budget, because should we not, well, she's going to be struggling with how to bring a budget to the legislature without, you know, significant tax increases, which we have avoided for many years now. So I feel bad leaving this to her, but not so much.
No,
But I do feel bad because I remember my first budget, Mr. Defia, I recommended it to you. And it was stressful. And I know it's going to be stressful for her, but I'm going to help out in any way I can. But we'll see. Cautiously optimistic. And that's all I have for you, unless there's any other questions.
Great. Thank you for the update. Sorry to lose you. Hopefully there's something in the future. Look forward to Christine being as acerbic as you were. And, inquisitive with all the applicants. So, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Well, that's a great transition because I don't think we actually will have to lose Mike on the board if you don't want to. Keith and I met this week, and Keith is looking at ending his tenure on this board. He's served for
Well,
more than a decade. So it would, because we don't have in our bylaws that the county administrator is part of our board, that is our legislature's preference because they are our appointing authority. So Christine could just move into Keith's spot on the board. So I have to have a conversation with the legislature, make sure they're okay with Mike staying on the board. I'm sure that will be a real big problem, but but it is their decision. So.
Careful what you ask for.
In all honesty, if they think that's a conflict and there's too much, you know, county involvement, I mean, I'm trying to extricate myself from county involvement. It's hard, but I'm trying to. But if my point to them is, should they want me, I would do it. If they don't want me, I will not be angry.
And obviously the chairman and I have spoken about this, and we feel that Mike's knowledge of
Oh my
the
God.
IDA is very valuable to us, so we would prefer to keep him,
I
so.
think you're going anywhere, Mike.
Well,
pay me to
Well, Keith, you've got to be
no.
sad to see you go too.
Yes, and Keith has done a great job on this board, and
Absolutely.
we had, you know, I made sure he was where we're not looking to push him out, that
As Mike was talking, I'm going, one, this board is politicking to get off.
I actually brought it up to Mike a month or so ago. I initiated it, not anybody else. It was with me.
So I took him out to lunch and we chatted, and the way timing on this is kind of perfect in a way, because we do our administrative services and everything next month, appointing our different officers, and so Keith will be stepping down as treasurer at the next meeting, and then I will have to we'll have a new treasurer on that slate of officers. So I'll be calling maybe a few of you to see if you're interested in that position. Our banker has respectfully declined. And so that leaves just a couple of you, so think about it. Sad to see Keith go. I'm glad we're gonna get to keep Mike if that's the case, and you know, good things ahead with our new board member here. So that's just a piece that was not on my actual report. Like I always say, you can read. The only thing I want to highlight is the last thing where I attended a roundtable with TDC, and they're looking at bringing back Manufacturing Day. Not something the IDA has been involved in the past. They're going to change the way that has been done. Traditionally, it was treated more like a job fair, and the seniors would come, and quite frankly, they already had their plans in mind, so it wasn't really beneficial to anybody involved. So it kind of fizzled out. They're looking to, target middle school kids, because middle school kids have no idea what they want to do at this point. And so getting them excited, it's actually a two-part program. So they would have the manufacturing day where you bring everybody to the IAM and you see different things and talk to different, companies. But it also would partner with a couple of the different manufacturers 6 weeks prior to that for schools wanting to engage in that. And they would have, tech shop lessons with them throughout. So Schluter could work with, NAC about, different processes that they have in their company. But getting them excited at that level so that as they decide what they actually want to do, we might be able to have a better retention rate on those students.
How's this different from the other manufacturer? One that's done by CBS.
So CBS isn't, we haven't done it in a couple years, is what I was told. CBS is at the table at this.
They did the one, I thought it was in November. It was at, so it was at the gym at, Clinton Community College. Yeah.
I'm not sure, John. I don't have a good answer for you. CBS is that, I was told that this hadn't been done, or maybe it's just that they're shifting towards the middle school kids as opposed to the seniors. I was under the impression it at least didn't happen last year, but maybe I'm wrong. And I don't know that there was that 6-week curriculum ahead of time. There could have been. I'm not sure.
There wasn't. I know that. It's a little different format. Just,
Yeah.
I think there's,
Yeah.
just make sure that all the players are.
Yep, the chambers, everybody that, I think I'm the only new person at the table, to be honest. So Joel was there, the new IAM director was there. Danny and Renee were both there. Why is his name escaping me? He used to be a principal. He does coordinates all these different, thank you, yes, Chris Mazzella. He was there, so, and CBS was there. So, yeah, I think I thought it was a good opportunity. Yeah, it was nice of Danny to think of the IDA, and get us involved and continue to be at the table. Everybody knows our purse is a little bigger than it used to be, so I'm sure they're gonna be looking for some money to help get it off the ground. So we'll stay tuned for that potential sponsorship. I think it was more of, they wanted to be able to give students some money to be able to, make presentations at manufacturing day, and the schools and the students themselves probably don't have that kind of money. So I think we're talking maybe a couple $1,000s if that. So stay tuned, more information to come. I don't think I have anything else unless anybody has any questions, Chairman.
Does anybody else have any other business? Keith, certainly want to thank you for your efforts to keep us,
We're solvent.
We weren't so solvent for a while.
yeah, you brought us, through the whole transition from the PDC down here.
Yeah. It's been a good run and a great board to work with, and I know what we mean to the community. Unfortunately, you got people that are always bashing because of the pilots and stuff, but
They're coming around. They're coming around.
And the end result is, the communities, we need to grow, you need to be there, you need to have these incentives or you're not gonna happen. And anybody that doesn't understand that, just being small-minded as far as I'm concerned. It's been a pleasure working with everybody, and I'll be back next month. It should.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Stop by and have lunch.
Does anybody else have anything else? If not, may I get a motion to adjourn? Mark?
I'll second that.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.